good show?
Yep.
Contention 1 is Taiwan will U.S. primacy in Asia's unsustainable, clean creates hostile China rise, that undermines credibility. With allies, China will accept U.S. units influence if the U.S. signals combination here. And 19 China's boosting a genuine non-truth hostile Germany actually to United States, indicating rest of peaceful, coexist and overlapping serious influence. China's not trying to oppose the system on a sea where China could definitely tolerate American military favor presence of that presence aimed at containing China. China's recognized domination is not as the old Beijing thinks into a model when China's primary powers little need for military adventurism because economic independence prevail. Members have no reason to challenge China's interest. China's external mission will expand because Beijing sees the need to be more assertive in response to external challenges. Assertiveness for the past decade has been a reaction willingness to settle for peaceful dependent on the United States is trying to obstruct Chinese interest. Its primacy is not sustainable. Power rejection is ordering related to Chinese capabilities. The way of sequestration giving budgetary priorities. Allies do not perceive China as being deterred. Most East Asian allies are increasingly concerned about Washington intending their security adjusting policy that hedge against unreliability, reach as that's for Washington ability, willingness to support primacy will reinforce Beijing belief that the United States seeks to keep it subordinate. This would increase the chance of aggressive posture. Also, Germany could become a self-fulfilling posture. Washington should de-escalate, pursue a long-term stable balance of power. Absent accommodation, spirals escalate to military conflicts wane. And 19 suspicion seems likely to be a China crisis. As a result, the result, Taiwan, China continued growth in military economic power, decline U.S. maritime predominance will eventually create an unstable rough parity cause China to overestimate on leverage on Taiwan. It could cause the United States to overreact with a clear resent relance without reassuring understanding. Intention-based calculation could escalate to tensorally result. The result could be a military conflict that should lead to a stable balance in Asia and a diffusing conflict mutual accommodation. Ending arms sales is key. Other options fail because China cares about Taiwan way more than the U.S. does. Gomez. And 15, the OA race posted over China's and politics of Taiwan trade status quo. And the trade will be unsustainable. China improves its military capabilities. The growing power of the Chinese military, especially naval missile forces, and running quality of managed military intervention. The United States would be met with formidable China's resistance. A2AD strategy complicates the U.S. ability to project power. The best option for preventing war. So, receiving strategy of combination, institutionalizing dialogues, preventing confidence building to establish mutual trust and holding arms sales will benefit U.S.-China relations by removing a major stumbling block for developing bilateral military talks. Halting sales does not mean that Taiwan self-defense forces would cease to exist if the Chinese respond positively. Beijing signals its combination. America does not have any other viable alternatives for preventing conflict. Increasing military spending would be difficult to sustain. Any conflict the Taiwan trade would lead to a major war between U.S. and China. Until American weapon purchase could bring negotiations with China. Recent arms sales are a red line. They inflame Chinese nationalism while cementing containment as lead. In 19, Taiwan's plans to alter military balance or Greenhill for defense offense by across Trump has shown unprecedented willingness to escalate with China. F-16Bs would be an indication that Taiwan's independence and critical the United States strategy, keeping the Pelican confined. The first island chain would be a significant blow for Xi's plan. Xi implied the reunification was a historic task. The Xi's not being criticized would be to see the party would not survive the loss of Taiwan. If the U.S. goes there without succeeding the B, then the pressure of the president will be immense. And arms sales embolden Taiwan independence that guarantees escalation. That's Terry in 19. Recent military action has been seen as used for Taiwan independence, which could undermine stability. Taiwan has a right to have arms too close to Beijing England. If sides reelected, which are likely cross-state tension like the escalate to Trump could really embolden Taiwan to move into any 80% of Taiwan and President Xi's one country to system versus as they understand Washington could ensure that one will not sent to Beijing. China could miscalculate. Taiwan deterrent strategies fail. China is motivated by sacred commitments and will risk everything for reunification. More and 16. Sacred commitments, the most important reason China wanted Taiwan back up to her score. Comment is not like a religious practitioner, so go beyond pragmatic utilitarian. Taiwan is fundamental because it is a single territory now returned to the motherland as Chinese the domestic politics shifted nationalism based on legitimacy. Taiwan be the litmus test for the history and strong sense of indignation in general. The Chinese people is a powerful part of identity. National indignation of the foreign powers is keeping Taiwan away from China to allow Taiwan to leave tantamount to treason. The threats to the legitimacy of the CCP. China is willing to go to war with Taiwan even if it means a war. The United States neither strategic, long-term, nor short-term material interests appear to be driving its calculation. Chinese government enjoys little room for compromise on Taiwan. China's commitment to Taiwan is unwavering through economic interventions. Raise the cost of war is not clear that unless the danger of conflict, little material German destroys China's a policy crisis over Taiwan draws in the U.S. escalates relevant. China still considers Taiwan to be its homeland. Unification means a key goal China uses to talk for force of Taiwan declares independence because China places such high value on Taiwan. The issue places special dangers. Crisis over Taiwan could escalate to nuclear war. Be achieved by rational. The United States would find itself under pressure to protect Taiwan against attack. The crisis could unfold once the United States finds itself following events. Improvements in China's military capabilities can make Beijing more willing to escalate. That war goes nuclear because China's nuclear and conventional forces are intermingled as so much. And you see China's increased pressure on Taiwan military combination from a Chinese campaign against Taiwan seems possible. China has nuclear weapons intermingled with conventional forces, making it difficult to attack one without the other conventional forces during a pressure escalate. If U.S. operation endangered China's nuclear forces, China's leaders might think that Washington and beyond a conventional war. Beijing might conclude that nuclear escalation was viable. The most worrisome flashpoint Taiwan. China could decide that the windows for getting control is closing and attack the United States anti-submarine campaign. Cut off its boomerang China's leaders on trend. Adding to China's sense of vulnerability, favor your strategy would endanger China's nuclear arsenal. Wartime development could strip from China's assumption use intent to Beijing might see nuclear escalation would and the common China could use nuclear weapons to destroy U.S. air base. Such escalation appears far-fetched. China's history suggests otherwise. Reducing arms sales signals U.S. threat reduction and reverses the perception of containment. Gillian 10. Washington have to scale back its arms sales to militarize the conflict, pulling back sales as a rejection Taiwan as a militarized base. By saying that Washington is respecting China's territorial sovereignty, reductions could lead to force reduction by China's will to enter Taiwan focused drills. Finland, Taiwan would improve the chance of peace. Theorizing China, Taiwan could create a model for the peaceful resolution of China's many conflicts throughout Asia. Arms sales don't change the balance of power in Asia, but ending them improves relations, which increases the cost of going to war. That's Chen 17. It is not obvious that arms have a large impact on power panels. Expensive packages to F-16B or counterproductive given their high cost. PRC's growing air capabilities. Mundane systems are more likely to be effective growth than economic integration. So I see a cost for quite high. They can cause reduced arms sales production be quite small. And less really just improving the relationship. If the PRC will have more to lose by initiating conflict, any sales could reinforce a stable scope. Empirics disprove Chinese revisionism. Defensive realism is more expensive power to low. And 19. China showed less revisionist tendency. China showed no revolutionary rhetoric. Increasingly pursued a cooperative approach with India, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Russia, Vietnam. China engaging international community to has the regional institution, APEC, ARF, and some of China's and after World UN membership vote from 21 to 52 members membership of the WTO terror rates decline CPA, focus on economic development, regionalization, so ahead China plays stabilized role in the NOCO talks in America, weapons to Taiwan, encouraging veteran users in the SES, US has increased interference of the FO and options on extension is on US influence result in China acting more assertively, US would act aggressively in any country US to interfere in its border. There's not much evidence to support offensive realism. Thus, the plan, the United States federal government should implement a substantial reduction of direct commercial sales and foreign military sales of arms from the United States to the Republic of China. Contention 2 is relations. Current Taiwan arms sales ensure a major breakdown in U.S.-China relations. Lopez 19, the world has eyed on the trade war, but mutual dangerous conversations playing out. Taiwan is the thing that China's scared about. Head down to U.S. intervening with Taiwan has a national threat. Where the $2 billion arms sale, they said that the winter in down time. It's a big chill. Search to antagonize Beijing because it touches upon China's core interest. By no means is negotiable for a bargaining chip. China's use interference as encroachment on its SY. U.S.-Taiwan arms deals spread and cooperation across the board. That's Chong 18. We have relations already strained. We the United States will immediately cancel this deal. To avoid serious damage to relation, cooperation, and important areas. Analysts have most likely to have much more confidence, better position, take countermeasure before the U.S. is to work in Area 16, not pull up disease, economic China cooperation, responding China's interests, coming, infuriate Beijing, but the plan de-escalates tensions and builds strategic trust. That's the recall. And 12% sales are reviewed invasion to prevent American intervention to interfere in China's domestic affairs to prevent peaceful education, harmony China's foreign lack discussion of community enhancing mutual trust, reducing chance of peace in the strait. Global non-proliferation regime is on the brink of failure. That ensures cascades of horizontal proliferation, but increased the regime's efficacy solves new nuclear states. It's Carlson and 19. There are major challenges in non-proliferation regime, including major violators, namely Iraq, Romania, North Korea, Libya, Iran, Syria. The spread of nuclear technology was designed to limit AA's capability. Argentina, Brazil, Egypt, Syria, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, plan significant nuclear activity states. Maintain that additional protocols. Voluntary states with additional protocols should persuade and hits a whole SS and deliberation on horizontal proliferation. Continue the spread of the nuclear weapons to additional states. China is the key player on preventing proliferation. A U.S. concession on Taiwan is key to unlock further cooperation. Him and 18. China's engagement issue linkage of bargaining attacked by leading non-proliferation. U.S. policy towards Taiwan strategies can be used for blackmail. China occupies a pivotal position for proliferation. The major source of nuclear technology is flyer missile. Beijing has provided several states with nuclear assistance. China has a strong influence on UNSC. Multilateral negotiation. China's provided support to proliferation in Pakistan, North Korea, Iran, and China's determining impact whether efforts to occur proliferation fails to see linkage most likely for Canada's influence or major interests that U.S. was influence over Taiwan, particularly sales to Taipei. China preventing Taiwan independence is a core interest, and U.S. arms sales are an unwelcome interference. Arms sales are the single sticking point. Hardline U.S. policy ensures that China spoils non-proliferation. That's him and 18. Beijing used non-cooperation over non-proliferation to retaliation. China started linking its non-proliferation policy. U.S. policy in early years. China expects U.S. concession. Taiwan arms sales to cooperate on preventing proliferation. China's retaliating when the United States hurt Chinese interests. China uses assistant proliferation as a bargaining tool. China leaders will continue to use this. China maintains leverage on non-proliferation. If you try to isolate China, they can expect reduced China's cooperation. Continue China preventing proliferation may be incompatible. Nuclear prolif causes nuclear war. Mad and rationality don't check. That's McGrand. 15 tries nuclear war. The more states greater probability for mad new nuclear states go through chance disappear. Risk lack of surface capability. One of both might believe that. And instead of use first states with a nuclear advantage might relieve and standard first capability might be that feel use or lose impression due to their typical fear of surprise attack. One might sort of want to believe that worse than no. In the world of mad, there's no risk, but it's not need to resort to rationality. Of course, there's might choose to eliminate nuclear war could result in devastating nuclear exchange. And China only escalates when they are losing. The plan deters military unification, but containment strategies fail. Capture 68, even if the PRC is confident that it would win across the war, might still be the cost of relatively high war damage. The PRC's effort to be serious responsible. PRC is slowly escalate territorial disputes when bargaining power is declining, improving. If Beijing is confident that factors will make unification more powerful to citizens, decision makers could forego force even if they could win a better outcome through war. No appeasement. Research proves that final 2018 when the United States invaded Taiwan will undermine regulatory abilities. Logic. The strong research shows that the decades research shows little evidence countries' record for keeping commitments determines their credibility. So it's not clear that America, because America will not defend Vietnam, will not defend Berlin, installment commitments undermine its reputation.
I'll send that.
Are you good? Alright. Which specific arms in the New Deal are the red line? One of your evidences tag us. There's some new arms deal. Which specific arms?
The evidence is in the context of fighter planes.
So
yeah.
F-16 jets, correct?
That's what the evidence is in the context of, but also F-16 AB planes.
Okay, so what about these F-16s are specifically key, or why are these considered the red line?
So just overall, we've identified long-term structural trends that make war inevitable. We have provided two examples of that, which is independence and F-16s. But to be clear, our whole thesis of this app is that those examples will multiply by the hundreds in the coming years because of a U.S. decline in East Asia. So, I mean, I'll answer your question about F-16s. Our evidence says that it crosses the red line from defense to offense.
I don't think it says that, but that's fine.
It says, quote, the gray line from defense to offense might be
crossed. The red line is what? Like, does that cause, like, is China supposed to, like, attack after that?
Well,
so China attacks Taiwan because
that's not our
the
scenario.
US
Our scenario is not an attack. It's a blockade of Taiwan. That's how much evidence is descriptive of a time when tensions increase. That
so China blockades Taiwan.
Naval blockades Taiwan. That's a scenario for war.
Okay, sure. Let's talk about the Gomez evidence. Why is this author qualified?
The Gomez evidence?
Yeah, just defend his qualifications.
He researches strategy in East Asia.
Okay. The website, I went to it. There's literally a Kickstart on it, and it's about people who hire themselves and then write their own qualifications. Like,
Gomez
if you go
is-
to the site, Gomez is writing his own
No,
qualifications.
Gomez is writing for a think tank called the Center for International Maritime
Yes, I went
Security.
to the.
Just because it has a Kickstarter doesn't mean it's not qualified. There's a master in IR.
He's also a Cato fellow.
Alright, sure. Why does, if China has all these nuclear capabilities, why would Taiwan risk independence pushes in the first place?
The argument is that because they think they have U.S. backing, they can kind of do anything. It's kind of like the entrapment scenario on like Saudi Arabia, where they've been emboldened by Trump because Trump has been so verbose about his support of
I
Taiwan.
guess that makes sense. The last part of the Glacier evidence is that there's increases in U.S. SOCO BMD post-planned. Why doesn't they just undermine U.S. relations?
Well, the here evidence is comparative between Taiwan and broader strategies of containment. It says that China perceives Taiwan as the linchpin of U.S. containment strategy in East Asia.
That's fine. The second advantage, why are both U.S. and China key to branding Poland?
The HIM evidence is in the context of a China holdout through an international organization. There's a few warrants. One is that they spoil votes in the IEA, UNSC. They actively vote against more strict regulations. Second is that they actively funnel tech.
So post-plan, they would then comply with these type of things?
If they're more likely, our evidence is reverse causal and says they're actively more likely to side with the United States.
So which countries no longer proliferate post-plan?
Our evidence names several countries like Libya, Romania.
Yeah, I see that portion. Why do those people, in your Carlson evidence, why do they comply?
Well, like, the argument, we don't have to win all of those, like, proliferate, but the argument is that it's not really their choice. It's about international regulations, and two is that China removes the capability for them to proliferate.
How does China remove those capabilities, and why do they comply once China gets on board?
So, first of all, it's not like an exclusive list, and that's, like, not these single lists. Yeah, but our evidence says that China funnels nuclear tech and expertise literally to these countries.
Okay, so China's right. That's fine.
Cool. I'm sending it.
Do y'all need to sing?
Yeah.
It's 5 off, then the Taiwan war advantage, and then the relations advantage. Everyone good?
Sorry, what's the order again?
5 off, then the Taiwan war advantage, and then the relations advantage. Now it's everyone good. Awesome. The first office here reduce your first control. You see here to establish quality or quantity limits on weapons exports. That's a state from restrictions on specific states or types of weapons. That's piercing AD restrictions on self-distributing or hit borders specific states or classes of types of weapons. Transfers between measures of quality or quantity limits or ceilings into government policies and designed to curtail violation. The opposite restriction, but you should limit any other interpretation of the topic by opening the door to every individual country and weapon which obvious clash. Next office is the USMC passes now solves food security. That's the Council Article 821 negotiations. Underscore the coalition, both President security league to withdraw used to do it 2.2 with the aggregate source and bring march for defense by locking uncertainty. Ground prohibition, White House and Dems. Going crucial leaders supports passage plan kills us. Start taking 16 hours. Countries away like person government insurance during arms for the gold market pressures. Always intense weapons being spread facilities in many states and localities. Members of Congress become strong supporters of exports. Great power war. That's all 17 threats. Include wars that ISIS Korea, Iran, Russia, China, Israel. Include security is imperative to reduce multiple threats. We're more stable countries. Diversity, insecurity, lead instability, unrest, and violence. About population, move attraction, incur the measure between secure countries. Next office, C rate cut off for substantial between 8% and 17%. Actually, that reduced less than 8%. Definitely on top of the less. Theory hearing 65 billion all arms treaty agreements, which are $65 billion. $79 billion. All arms deals 33 billion, decrease slightly from the 36 billion. Vote negative for negative limits and grounding. Last time you asked to turn the country up in the data. Rules fairness. Next office, the campaign. The United States federal government should substantially increase. One, its arms sales to Taiwan. Second is consideration of any effort to determine the future of Taiwan by other than peaceful means of potential peace and security. Third, discriminated availability. Taiwan self-defense capability through defense articles and services. Fourth, its willingness to reduce its arms sales to Taiwan's condition on China advancing peaceful solutions and differences with Taiwan. Sixth, fifth is adopted limited war posture that provides military aid to Taiwan positions, military forces east of Taiwan, implicitly demonstrating People's Republic of China's intention to defend exclusively the east coast of Taiwan from attack. Sixth, is substantially increasing engagement building partner capacity programs related to asymmetric deterrence with Taiwan. Seventh, is publicly announced that this is a policy of the United States. Eighth, is encouraged more diplomatic action that Taiwan adopts an asymmetric deterrence posture, including the session of all persons that do not contribute to asymmetric deterrence capability. And ninth, is repeal tariffs imposed by the Trump administration of the People's Republic of China. Next, is the K. Second calls is permanent nation state with Brazil nation indigenous life and land by the occupation of settlers. Appropriation of land natives and good shallow slaves and excess labor. That's not getting in 12. There's other claims zero total appropriation indigenous life land. That's a settler sovereignty, total land social capital construction, indigenous land present violence. This is restored every settler claims construction non development involves subjugation forced labor shadows whose wives lives become the property and landlessness in person's excess shadow slaves or excess labor. They would never be paid because payment would have to be land settlers or diverse not just white causation metaphor left people who would contradictory aspects of causation and be signified by any liberation. Causation was involved repatriation. The act uses Taiwan as a bargaining chip in the game of U.S.-China great power competition, making it possible to independence contingent on the strategic value of the American Empire. That's Sue at L17. Taiwan was imperialist forces of China, which articulately retained the island in the U.S. Demonstrated ability to states it has been appropriate to bargain in terms of U.S.-China policy, negotiation with islands' right to self-determination. Taiwan's been policy by colonial majesty, utility, futurity was missing its understanding paternalism of American independence easily form violent contradictions, including genocide, which continues U.S. benefit from suppression of independence movements and making new schools in Taiwan's yet another example. We urge Taiwan's independence distance from the U.S. ability freedom all the way through Mars life by America, including the interest right to broader movements in the U.S. As no doubt by BLM and ensures liberation. The alt is refusal. Thus, substance 60 refusal theory political neighbor non-native people. It's not their orders refuse consent to the state refusal offers apprehension of produce sociality through time colonialism and operating like a grammar that has to China refusal goes to research something beyond counter recognition while pointing the overly determined capacity. The state refusal holds on the truth operates as a constant because of the interpretation. This was fair and says that this is all over with. Refusal places falsity contractual thinking because of valid recognition of refusal and mechanism for other possibilities. Refusal sees anything on the freedom of refusal consent. Refusal eliminatory efforts of the states. Next is the Taiwan war advantage versus Chinese strategic motives and inevitably derail relations. Only maintaining Trump's current strategy can deter erosion of global order and stability. That's back in 19. All parties craft dominance states inflation related pressure to the last Chinese economic tools towards neighbors and international commercial practices committing theft and manipulating currency during Taiwan builds up military forces during our official alliance with the goals of raising the U.S. from embracing years of past confrontation policy lead to concession of the Chinese best scholarship and empirical evidence proves China is expansion plans concession only green light further aggression when it empowers nationalists increase the risk of war. That's weighing and 18 states have said administrative rates claiming China's limited aims since appear clear noble so complete evidence support the lineage of China since we face uncertainty banning Taiwan is nation would not continue to march the harvest may been down such a species is seeking concession and growing U.S. with expectation China's practice would also be nationally Chinese capabilities prepare would be enhanced fishing would push more concession accommodation increase more aggressive behavior bomb accommodate China by pushing arms instead of monitoring China's these concessions as a weakness for the China can get away with some assertiveness. It's symbolic value of F-16 is necessary to dissuade the Chinese attack that's lost on 19 Taiwan's new aircraft are symbolic person American position would include aircraft from Taiwan pilots will be flying on fighters American bases so significantly Beijing eager to step out Taiwan's independence Taiwan economic aircraft in its inventory of fighters training will indigenous fighters that new aircraft necessity ensuring Taiwan can itself was essential to lower risk of crisis in Taiwan century humiliation institutional undermining of public statements all prove revision system that's the social way U.S. and China doing all mixed producing China's revisions aviation to aggressive foreign aggressive but it had been about territory issues to out policy increase military can be read as satisfaction of existing order Beijing we clearly expand the world for its military institutions have been dominated the U.S. Beijing creating new high starting point is significant and financial governance China's willingness to become a global hegemon from 1839 China enjoyed hegemonic position China centuries recording this China possesses East Asia in the world that depends how you remind foreign message statement it was during the century humiliation final global political and military influence China was broadness its SOI the backing out caused the Russian and Chinese fears and influence and overexpansion that's created all Mitchell in 16D reverses strategy stretching pro because American power China Russia was early one of those first wars and impact war merge of a large pressure where the U.S. could be from a great power war against nuclear armed competitors Russia China Iran unsure about marine the U.S. has allies British have advances in the contest most increasing potential accident clash terms of assumption among U.S. physically fulfill security obligations and is politically willing to do so. Iran was probably allies might generate arms so there was successful first culminating military competition force against Russia China time for confidence could face a war that culminates in nuclear attack willing escalates also cause aggression that's a match of 15 China's testing result and really results outcomes of foundation China's new search victim de-escalation only exacerbates the issue China's massive shipping away U.S. credibility China introduces the risk of recent customers only producing changing Chinese behavior only encourage greater propagation but de-escalation may be the source of encouraging further Chinese propagations Washington mystical willingness U.S. issues a perfect system higher risk of allowing for the possibility of de-escalation next his arms to preserve cautionary peace playing creates separation that makes independence more likely it's suffering with 11 that Taiwan's need to places not for separation but create environment for relations to ask the U.S. back in Taiwan would be insecure and vulnerable politically arms to compromise in the absence of the U.S. Support Taiwan would lose confidence in advantage Taiwan might desperation declared that survive by producing nuclear weapons no China Taiwan war that's questions and it so will the U.S. sells arms Taiwan conventional China U.S. to their very extent is not altered strategic interests and region will continue incremental coercion and influence Taiwan's attachment to Israel future arms in long term China's policy makers pragmatic enough to know that feasibility it can only be achieved in long term time overall the U.S. is turned for security China will not escalate into hostile action Taiwan can inflict damage for the cost be too great China wants to create the best with the U.S. and China no independence that's CNBC and Taiwan's policy China won't take the Irish side radio China policy not change people roving on a local issue figure really contains illegally the election result. Nationalism won't cause war. That Johnson 17 analysis shows the not advising nationalism rights by somebody who not been important Chinese policy Chinese scores for diplomacy likely right nationalism not like they for calling level of nationalism negative Johnson's even as growth rates declines. Each measure insurance fails. Such as the 15 did had average first year seated alongside no system requires sports realize all sex under consideration in powerful manipulative relationship and cultural limitation realization inherently joint character about comments with command limits and cultural lowers all some senior officers will complicate experimenting so realize distributed mainstream operations will require that change. Next is relations. Tons of all causes, Johnson 15 U.S. General relations Rocky going from the SES, AIB, and TPP. In addition, these issues lead to most substantial attention to cybersecurity and the VIT. The plan creates a domestic political strife that kills relations. That's Shelly 11 and U.S. defense to Taiwan. Would not recommend Taiwan for indication. Taiwan would defend by debate or Taiwan with the U.S. and Taiwan's many U.S. supporters and the expert quota change. The last thing is Sino-American relations sees politically charged debates. Structural conditions make U.S. China reliably inevitable. Combination doesn't solve this. Wing and 18 becomes the U.S. China relations. Thought structure national structural permissions for war. The China's only one nation. Used to China, the U.S. Fear of the power reach. Taiwan operated in structure great power basis strategic people is not ideological maximization of power reach or neighbors. China's future aims are far beyond the current Taiwan. Security limits product states and certainty by detentions and constant non-real accommodate China will not stretch more than the problem of uncertainty. No solvency. One is Carson list states who will violate the NPT now. Collapses of the regime, but China can't stop that. And prep failing others proving ineffective. Actually, no prolif impact is created in ATD. Decades has been forecast proving very wrong. Majority not there even post-graphic effects of compelling empty chain reaction whatever occurred. It consists of more authorship and news. That's right now there's some imminent nor likely no security concerns matter. Security fears are not but we get more bullish statistical analysis just acquisition. Part of acquisition.
Yeah. Good for classics?
Yeah.
First, do you read all the cards on the Taiwan War Advantage?
Yes.
Okay. The appeasement term. So China spends $200 billion in defense, US spends $600 billion. Why is $2 billion of arms sales the thing that determines the race for the global leadership?
Well, the argument is that China has expansionist desires. Yes, they may be like lower military spending now, or evidence indicates that they have an incentive to increase that now.
My argument wasn't that comparatively we spend more. It's that this arms sale is tiny compared to the overall defense strategy of China. It's $2 billion and $200 billion. Why does that matter?
But you've made a broader red line argument about why that somehow makes China angry. We've kind of reversed that and said that provides a better deterrent for Taiwan. All of our evidence indicates that those arms sales indicate a stronger U.S. commitment to Taiwan, and then we've also read F-16 specific evidence.
It seems as if you've shifted from it's not literally the sales; it's a signal that the sales send them. Your evidence,
we'll also
you'll say both. Let me ask about the appeasement thing. Your evidence says that China's been building islands in the SES where they can put military assets on. Trump has said nothing about that. Why is that not an example of appeasement?
Well, the argument is that they are expanding in the status quo.
Yeah, we've done nothing. So why is that not thumb the link?
Well, the status quo is deterrence. We've given arms to Taiwan, etc.
We have, but we haven't done anything to stop expansion in other areas. I'll ask again, why does this not thumb the link?
Well, we've also made an argument about why providing arms to Taiwan indicates a broader deterrence strategy for the U.S., i.e. it's a base for the U.S. in Asia. Okay. It's like a question of commitment, and then also
so the Greenhill Mitchell impact dev. So the scenario is that we give up Taiwan, and then Russia's like, well, Trump won't oppose me on Ukraine, and they invade. No,
the Greenhill Mitchell evidence says that Russia and China, as revisionist powers, are probing America's sort of commitments, and then says that China and Russia were learning from one another's probes.
So Russia becomes more. Why does Russia not perceive NATO containment as distinct?
Well, no, the Greenhill Mitchell evidence says that China and Russia are learning from one another's probes.
I understand that warrant, but my next level warrant is like, why is containment strategies not distinct in regions? Because obviously Trump can bifurcate.
Yes, but the Greenhill Mitchell evidence makes that spillover argument and says that Russia and sort of China learn from each other, i.e. in a world where they perceive America backing down in one instance, they would just sort of see that as a sign that expansion is probably happening.
Status of the K and the counterplan?
Conditional.
Okay, the counterplan does like radically changes our policy to Taiwan, like tells China that abandon strategic ambiguity, right?
I mean, yes.
And then you tacked on this plank at the end that's like repeal tariff to try to solve relations, even though you do the one thing that China would hate the most. How do you think you solve relations?
Well, we would argue that the Trump tariffs are like the larger internal link to relations. And
really? Then Taiwan? Do you have for that? That's just like, I don't think that's true.
Okay, sure.
I mean, like we read evidence on that.
Yeah, but you don't have, it's not only that it's bigger than Taiwan. You have to win that actively boost relations, even though you declare support for Taiwan. How does that not at least make it neutral?
Oh, we will read like plenty of evidence on this.
That assumes the other planks of the counterplan?
It's a bigger internal link, but arms still provide an effective deterrent, which is distinct.
The critique, the link evidence advocates for independence. Is that part of the alternative? Taiwan independence. Taiwan.
Well,
we defend
that's
that.
like type of
it's like refusing colonial structures. Yes.
That's that. Order will be Taiwan War advantage, or I'll do relations first. Taiwan War. So substantial 8%. T. Pearson, which is the subset argument, or the restriction argument. Then the K. Counterplan politics.
You said K counterplan politics?
Yeah.
One second, I just need that.
You said relations and
Yeah.
Did you I haven't done
Yeah, I think. Definitely.
maybe I might.
Okay.
Just okay,
Alright. Anyone not good? Cool.
Yes, we saw relations. They understand that the him card has an issue linkage argument that China specifically links Taiwan arms cells to proliferation, which outweighs all the sanctions. Also, we have evidence that the more evidence says that Taiwan's sacred commitment, which means that outweighs any other clause of the plan, doesn't decrease relations. They have no evidence that says that the domestic reaction would overwhelm the massive signal of conceding on Taiwan, which is the key issue here. Structural factors don't outweigh. We will win the Chinese defensive realism, which means that they won't care about anything else as long as we're not intimidating them on their key issue. Also, it doesn't answer the issue language argument. I explained about the Carson thing. That doesn't make sense because they can see the him evidence is that China is the key player. They are key in multilateral negotiations, as well as the plan would lead them to stop transferring nuclear tech to these countries, which means they have no capability of proliferation. They don't assume in the world in the transition period, but when the states don't have a secure second strike capability, incentivizes user and loosen pressures, which means that there's incentive to first strike launch because they think war isn't within worse inevitable. Taiwan war, the offense, deterrence fails. First, Taiwan's a key issue for China, and they can't be deterred from taking the island. It defies utilitarian calculation. That's more. Second, Canadian breaks down trust communication, which just means minor clashes escalate. That's here. And so, in third, China's more likely to use for military force when its interest in being denied. The plan makes reunification palatable. Less caster. Shifting balance of power makes deterrence unsustainable. U.S. budget cuts, Chinese modernization, and development of A2 AD means China can't be deterred. That's here and go. It's China's running U.S. superiority over now. That's O'Connor 19. U.S. military in the Pacific is rotated political and finding all costs engaged in giving China the upper hand. America's no longer choice promising wars in the Middle East, pleasure, staring, and investment in the liberal order buildings. Like U.S. forces over China has deployed formidable missiles and systems. The modernizes air and sea fleets. Got interested in China and Washington to detract no appeasement link. Baynard says China won't receive the app and signal lack of resolve in other issues. The Cold War and decades of research prove a combination solves the link. China's limited influence and peaceful coexistence with the U.S. cooperation with multilateral institutions, diplomacy with neighbors, focus on economic development, and disproportion. That's here in July. Their warnings about century humiliation are in the economic things are answered by how China's being seeking a cooperative approach with the U.S. and they're more likely to be defensive because they fear Western powers building relations, deter war, cast seeking the use of in certain creations, kicking with China's cost of damage and broad use in relationship, but if the relationship is time to begin with, then Beijing is less loose for Taiwan. The cost of relations risk being self-defeating. Arm cells don't matter. They're tiny. Chinese spending capabilities and current cells are flashy, like the F-16 that would be destroyed easily, which takes out the argument that F-16s are key making strategic concessions. We're able to optimally deal with China. Yoder and team protection early passion makes favor more foreign investment and rights. Future test elsewhere that info makes allows the client state to adopt a more optimal strategy, increasing cooperation with the United States while opposing hostiles by posting high information over China. The U.S. has increased instead of misrepresenting giving ambiguity. Even small phone sense it could also use calculus in Taiwan still more valuable to China, which when the info benefits are greatest and current Chinese built up in the SCS with zero users on stumps to signal that's a here evidence. The plan shifts Taiwan to A2AD going 16 without using in Taiwan and improves substance capability. China's lost force against regrets with increased frequency. Taiwan can then PLA through asymmetric strategy, mobility, increasing the raise cost of war. No Russia impact. The app doesn't decrease NATO deterrence, which is a bigger signal to Russia than something about Taiwan. Yes, the independence thing. They have no unions for the terms. They can see independence because if unions is inevitable, if independence is inevitable in the status quo because of U.S. arms cells. Second, Taiwan's not suicidal. They wouldn't declare independence if they know that China would just invade them. They won't do it if they have U.S. support. Yes, there's war. The long-term trends prove because China could risk war because A, they're a balance of interest in their favor because they care way more about Taiwan, and B, they're increasing their capabilities to attack with A2AD capabilities that can lock the U.S. out of conflict. Also, red lines like the SCT improve the yes demands. 83% of Taiwanese people oppose the Xi's one party two systems, and long-term trends will make it inevitable. It's also about Chinese perception, not necessarily independence. Nationalism stuff's not about Taiwan. More says that the sacred commitment and inflames nationalism more than any other issue. The asymmetric deterrence fails. Yes, all deterrence fails. Cross by this is the counter which it takes out the T violation.
We meet planet's vacuum counterturf. It means 2.7% portality on arm cells, non-substantial, making only 2.7% according to experts. Estimates preferred versus over limit. They only allow the Saudi app, which creates a year of sale. The base and bracket support topic of your discussion. Second, no limits. Seven, we only allow a few more apps. A differential is laziness. Third, predictability. Arc fires intent to define. Insights experts. And fourth, functional limits. T subs, filling, circumvention, limits, and conditioning count by reasonability. Community terms because race to bottom and substance ground up. T Pearson. We meet first the column place approves on certain disagree highlighting this Pearson 88. Second, planet's vacuum. We say reduce counterturf. Reduce means diminish size. It includes target reduction of Ingram. And you get consideration plane means base mental. Reduce means diminish size preferred. First is after ground qualitative apps limit out all country research. Enforcing the worst ceilings app with universal obligation. And qualitative apps unlimited the topic because there's no baseline. Second, cross-wide predictability. Third, cross-wide functional limits. Fourth, no ground loss. Auctionary decency. Disqualify the big country apps. Cross-wide reasonability. Decay. Weigh the app against the competitive alt and weigh response to institutions. Anything else is arbitrary. Moose the winning see which undermines fairness to clash. Two links to education and strategy testing that turns their standards. Pertinent to both. Either all can overcome the links to blame or can't solve the problems of the status quo. Reject multi-actor fiat. The all fiat too many actors. For that to predict, it's impossible to compare solvency of that. The counterturf they get to fiat 10,000 people or fewer. Extinction outweighs the anti-native balance. Is contention, but everyone dying outweighs the choice of the future, which is a key to their alternative. And it turns decay because the nuclear test is going to native land and research trade-off are more likely in the time of war. They're wrong about issues progress. Noise cat 17. And starts life structurally dependent on elimination. How we explain survival of that same native indigenous race have gained ground. Indigenous people with pressure states build a landscape given them as Indian New Guild Accord tries to gain control of the 70s. So the red card movement, the Indian becomes dependent of the federal control of these market matrix. Indigenous people are smart politicians. The concession to provide indigenous nation with access to the government and movements has been resolution resistance is impactful impaired with persuasion. No link. First, the after the explicit rejection of seeing Taiwan as a bargaining chip. The little bit scars says we shouldn't do that. Unconditional reduces arms. It doesn't demand any Chinese concession. It's just a combination of their interests. Second, we impact our Taiwanese independence, which became a resulting U.S. supports a violation of China's legitimacy and escalates to nuclear war, which outweighs. Third, we haven't secured China because their defensive power. Their theory is bad. Faith is wrong. It's diversity 16. That's SEC colonization and level. And race of colonialism, centering colonialism and structure. A concept of logical imperialist agency, event, logical colonialism, producing about possibilities of settlement, collaborative struggles, and more by indigenous agency leads to find ways to transcend formation, not the economy, but the incomplete project, the incomplete elimination, which means explain the economy, and towards the oppressor, self-air restricted, you get the vermin, the best grab, as a constantly changing composition forces, become like slow glows, and rework itself public life. It's always in the making. It all fails. It can't blow up fast enough to influence politics, means it can't solve the app, which outweighs, and it can't say refusal of policy refusal is bad. This laying of the indigenous people have to go with representation through legal rights. The indigenous movement have constantly reified certain strategic essentials and politics refusal. It's not like advanced indigenous demand. Other things concerning lower label risk losing complexities that permeate the heterogeneous collectivity and indigenous autonomy should accompany articulation that are more egalitarian. The counterpoint. The one that he didn't read a solvency card. That one is a voter because it's unpredictable, infinitely regressive, and allows block verification to spike out of any of the 2AC offense we can pinpoint. And second means the one that gets a lot of new enters, they read evidence for anything that's true. Because the counterpoint causes independence by boosting US backing, which seems unconditional to Taiwan, so they would risk independence as the take cards. Second, the counterpoint is the status quo, increases containment, and US threats to China, which causes backlash on proliferation, and war the A2AD in Taiwan can't deter China, which they said on the case that it can't do because the rest of the debate is on the deterrence debate about why deterrence fails. Finally, tariffs don't solve him specific to prolif being linked directly to arms sales, not terrorists. They would hate the increase in arms way more than reduction of terrorists, and they have no evidence on that. That was cross-site per to the app, and all plans except the first one that signals US commitment, which obviously outweighs and preserves deterrence posture, but it's not mutually exclusive. Condos, voting issues, clash, voice, divides, because of race, Obama, on strategic rather than educational arguments, and incentivizing and undercover positions, 2AC Thomas Rescue, automatic procedural fairness, dispo, and multi-round solves all their offense. USMCA. This was not a complete argument. The one see they have no conclusive uniqueness or internal arguments. Just says they want to pass, not they will pass. The one there should get new answers. Democrats block the deal. PCVLs, other issues done as Carney, 9-3, lawmakers for their can't call Muslims, those lawmakers all the time spare guns. Supposedly, the Trump supported the government funding Congress and sought to reverse into Trump, looming relationship in Capitol Hill, and Trump and NAFTA, when Congress made agreed to fast track any trade, but the policy could change to that. If Trump made the hardball, it could get around in 2020. Congress need to tackle this around side challenge to force the vote on arms sales societies, and Congress need to finalize a defensible issues of compartmentalized. No evidence says there's spill over between arms sales and other issues. PC fails, full weight on 19 level. People Trump and other down. He'll learn to deliver creativity. Nothing wants domestic policies become reality. Congress makes a great long unpopularity ruined in a PC. He always faces widespread public disagreeable press lies. Temporary political skill to bridge differences. Trump's laws influence and policy holds the upper hand. Cass law is terrible. It's about global conflict. Their internal link card says they'll increase exports to Mexico and Canada by a bit, not solve global food security. No food wars could be 14 American working with scarcity conflict. The way of analyzing qualitative studies specific countries. Hardly comprehension is difficult. Generalized quantitative empirical analysis just states cooperate rather than finding agreements for dispute reduce risk side payments. Relation linkage tries to prevent conflict, common occurs in disputes and tensions, non-armed hostilities. Yeah.
You good? I guess you sort of made this asymmetric deterrence argument. How does a plan create that shift?
Gomez card indicates that in the world of the U.S. abandoning its commitments to Taiwan, Taiwan will be forced to increase defense spending, increase their own capabilities in response.
But we conceded it fails, just to be clear.
Yeah,
we got a card on that.
Yeah, we concede it fails. If you want to say it succeeds, then we would the plan would actually.
Wait. I guess my confusion is like, what is where does Taiwan acquire these asymmetric?
They have a lot of
capabilities?
defense spending. They can buy technology from abroad. They can produce it themselves.
Okay.
I mean, countries can
what kind of technology
produce
would they
arms
produce
domestically.
domestically? What kind of technology would they produce domestically?
The Gomez card indicates it would be military tech focused on mobility, concealment, area denial.
Concealment? What does that mean?
Mobility probably be like things like smaller submarines, attack boats, coastal defenses.
Do you think Taiwan has the domestic capacity to build an entire A2AD system to counter China?
We do think that they would do that. They would have to increase defense spending to them. Anyway, this doesn't really matter because you said A2AD for Taiwan would fail and China could never. And that means that China would not be able to deter it, which takes out the counterplan because that's the only way you can solve it.
That's fine. The econ sort of cooperation arguments you made that China participates in international institutions, etc. What are specific examples?
The WTO, they're doing the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which proves that they're focusing on regional development, and they've increased their participation in several regional summits and institutions, and they've doubled their membership in the UN.
Now, in this context, then China's also established its own counter-economic organizations like AIIB.
Yeah, the problem with that is that China has actively invited the U.S. to join the AIIB and the BRI. The U.S. has declined that because the U.S. is hell-bent on containing China. There's no reason that those are trying to upend the international order when they're simultaneously participating in current institutions and inviting the U.S. new ones.
The Yoder card, this card talks about strategic, economic retrenchment and describes regional institutions and how the U.S. should economically retreat. I don't know why it describes defense postures or Taiwan.
The other card says in the U.S. retrenching and giving China a limited accommodation on an issue would decrease Chinese incentives to misrepresent their aims. I.e., if China.
Yoder also says the U.S. has adopted a hedging strategy that imposes constraints over China's behavior. The next sentence says this strategy has been quite effective in achieving its intended purpose of inducing China to cooperate under the current rule of U.S.-led.
Yeah, that card. That's Yoder's talking about how that has been effective in the past, but we have structural uniqueness claims that since China is increasing in power and ability to challenge the U.S., that will not be as effective. Yoder's argument is that the U.S. should retrench, and if China reacts aggressively, they can.
Question. How do we know, in all its participation in these international institutions, that China's not lying? How do we know it's true?
How do we know they're not lying? I mean, you have to produce evidence that's conclusive that they're lying. I think rather than just saying, "Oh, let's assume China's evil and lying," we should analyze the empirical examples of what they've done and what that indicates in a logical sense.
We made claims about why they use institutions to gain power for their own purpose.
You have not made claims about that. You've said that they've done in AIIB and then not said why that implicates that they're revisionist.
10 minutes.
Stop her. Yeah. Is that very good for an order? colonialism K, the advantage counterplan, and then the relations advantage, and then the Taiwan advantage.
Can you do that again?
Yeah, settler colonialism K, the advantage counterplan, the relations advantage, and then the Taiwan.
One more time.
The settler colonialism K, the advantage counterplan, relations advantage, and the Taiwan advantage.
Doesn't make you do it again.
Alright. Alright, is everyone good?
Concede the permutation, do both permutations test the competition, any theories or reason to reject the argument on the team you asked. The advantage counterplan. The counterplan solves every internal link and generates uniqueness for the design by reaffirming our commitments to Taiwan through increased sales commitment to defend Taiwan and providing military aid to furnish division, even a small 1% risk of a net benefit outweighs a minor unquantifiable deficit. Our structure the counterplan force, they speak first, last, and have infinite prep time. It's a question of conditionality. They say no solvency advocates. The counterplans without solvency advocates are good. We get one, the 2AC only says substance. The A step point is critical thinking. So our smart analytical counterplans are essential to quick thinking and logic. They can offset 2AC college process clarification and value context. B step point is ground. The counterplans without solvency advocates are essential for flexibility. On the top of zero disaground, they can invent tiny instances of arm sales with hyper-specific arm sales. Keywords, alternative artificial process counterplan, which turns are off. And C step point is reciprocity, catching internal links and making plan text solvency advocates impossible. Analytic counterplans restore competitive equity. Reject the argument. Out of firms and C checks abuse. They say the counterplan solves independence, but they're wrong about this. Increasing deterrence does not do that. Their K evidence isn't conclusive on this. It's not in context of the counterplan. The counterplan solves this better. They say the counterplan is the scope, but this counterplan has a substantial increase and does a bunch of new stuff that they drop. They say deterrence fails, but the counterplan solves it better for three arguments. First is general deterrence solves the counterplan clarifies use policy and to bolster deterrence runs Chinese aggression to preserve de facto independence. Any permutation Rex signaling Maza 18 relatively straightforward to counter Taiwan's isolation. The U.S. drop and self-imposed limitation on bilateral litigation. They have military action together. Washington district Taiwan as it does with the country's ties and the social occur regularity should not be hostage to diplomatic allies and the jobs of ministry and public affairs. That is the use policy not consider any effort than any other piece of threat to provide Taiwan with arms and innovation capacity to resist any force and militia. Likewise, firmly committed makers available to Taiwan defense articles when necessary. The Congress should mandate action encouraged by the Congress language includes secret president and director of regulation to communicate the U.S. willingness to reduce condition upon the commitment to China peaceful of Taiwan PRC differences strategic ambiguities not making too ambiguous about engaging the U.S. embrace Taiwan's position of minimum stable crisis into capitalism working ensure Taiwan does not signal in Taiwan's people domesticating believe in the independent in the future and the U.S. and Taiwan's approach to deter and defeat China. Second is defending East Coast solves the counterplan limits as Victoria dynamics by explicitly codifying limited war and raising the cost of a Chinese invasion of Taiwan and prospects proves that this is the only internal link to the Nakazawa 15. Although others are demanding Taiwan, the U.S. has selected a broad optimal answer to be selling a total war deterrence is by punishment in both China's attacking and Taiwan should improve deterrence by denying Taiwan alone without achieve such because it is surrounded by ocean. U.S. needs to support Taiwan in the efforts of China invades from all directions. The Taiwan army will withdraw from the middle and the army will be able to do little protection on the east side of the Taiwan is effective. The U.S. can avoid complete competition, avoid limited war by enhancing deterrence by denial. The carriers will support the east side controlling escalation. U.S. superiority in the east coast will reduce China's attacks in that direction, increasing Taiwanese capabilities to continue to project war. Chinese forces attack in the long term in order to be Vietnam and China's outcomes to invade Taiwan will increase and forces China to seek political institution thereby sustaining stability. I'm not going to read the next part. And third is all Taiwanese deterrence. That kind of increases builder capacity programs related to asymmetric deterrence with Taiwan and diplomatically encourage them to adopt these strategies, which resolves their offense. Taiwan can contest with A2AD, but they need to sell arms to them in Yanfan. 15 Martin Nation, the FFPLA is reversing leaving resulted the apologetic of the tours of Beijing. Taiwanese about the A2AD. Capabilities acting absolutely correct in identifying A2AD. That Taiwan has already taken in notice and other experts are arguing for incorporating A2AD platforms. However, going asymmetrical most commonly the existing assets active fighter composed with a unique role in both peace and war, and there does not contribute to the goal of building up resolutely defense and credible deterrence and reducing with sale of new fighter jets that effectively degraded their RCOF and make more mere peace out in their air policing forces that in turn undermine Taiwan's emerging A2AD infrastructure. They say tariffs fail, but it doesn't. Trump say with tariff wars, the biggest internal link to relations that we can't get all caused by 18 economic and defense, like central role in preventing competition between the U.S. and China involving hostilities that Beijing must lessen over by economic independence by being more proactive in undermining U.S. international interests by undercutting sanctions on North Korea by making members and provisions or revision posture trade tension undermining bilateral ties and implications for stability. Firm
the app and everything else from links to deterrence, and it still includes a reduction of arms sales, which do destroy deterrence as per the link to beta count, but maintains current deterrence. It solves the terminal impact to the other players view this to an offense. You can create and move for what links less. They say conditionality is good counter interpretation. We get two first critical thinking, first strategic to a C first, and second negative flex count is on top with 0 to 0 allows rigorous testing. There's a logical decision making. The move for the best all challenge. Anything else in the real world. Of course, this having skills test for arguments are different viewpoints and build educational breadth. Reject the argument. Adams forms into a C checks abuse relations advantage. Non-proliferation, don't fail now, lack of consensus, collapsing U.S.-Russia relations, adding effort, drawing new acquisitions, sector efforts, that's norm, burden for the absolvency is Russia, China, and the U.S. get centric, getting all their nukes that should be the burden for this advantage. Non-proliferation, collapse inevitable solution. 19, MBA collision, integrated original, non-signatories, and running universal relation, and norms, providing incentive, proliferation, aspiration, to break away from obligations, they press not without shortcomings and exploiting the posturing of posting the challenge of compliance, problems that has the potential unravel the MBA and refusal, and yes to give up the weapons raising most severe challenges that continue to stalemate and push by NW, as is embarking radically approach may even unravel the MPG, central pillar, and non-proliferation regime, and disengagement also. Given 18 now, talk from the impending collapse and non-proliferation regime and the causes surrounding alarm for the deepening of dividing the community over the lack of progress, illustration of all-time high. There's no way to make progress in establishing a deep divide, making it impossible to make progress in non-proliferation. Since the MPG when the U.S. is no longer trying to visit set the limits for perception or combative with all the INF and perceivers another side of nuclear weapons and having little to comply to states will be less interest in incorporating the non-proliferation. Their evidence says the only way to reconcile horizontal proliferation is multilateral negotiation. Other obstacles, some Carlos and 19, MPG regarding negotiating good faith negotiating needed, including a framework activities and negotiating posture non-nuclear weapons states NPTs is will not commit reaction and non-NPT states without giving life as a consensus or for the rule for the CD decisions and major obstacle relations fail too many all causes SCS clashes AIAB TPP secure cybersecurity norms and BIT that's Johnson. Even if Taiwan is one thing, that noise there will be always something like Trump tariffs, which is on the other counterplan, and arms aren't key. There's only risk the plan makes their relations worse. Ending assistance as Taiwan will ignite domestic debates about China, which may increase polarization. That's the Shelley evidence. And I'm going to go to the no prolific impact, no risk of dominance, security, fears don't drive it, no international constraint checker, impairs food test, no impact, no 18, prolific must be read, it's impossible that the world will survive acquisition, most reckless and murderers and injury, then no prolific lies, and the speed up and down to consider that a few more needs and difficult selection, and should you profitable numbers in destruction, not only pays for effects situation, warn is to use it or lose it, but use it or lose it is wrong. Groaning, 18, the argument is white nuclear superiority might be destabilizing news data positioning nuclear and for they feel like UEL pressures, but two final news runs logic conflict, person ignores the fact that your state retains healthy ability to proliferate or retaliate. So, if your state will be guarantees upper devastating retaliation to the irrational UAL theory is incorrect. We should accept nuclear inferior states and intentionally launch nuclear wars in states about superior nuclear arsenals and turning back on the empirical record. We see the nuclear inferior states frequently back on the high stakes crisis and nuclear superior opponents. Taiwan. First, no impact on China war strategy is irrational and pragmatic. Invading Taiwan while they're backed up by the U.S. is an idiotic move because the costs so massively outweigh the potential benefits. Instead, they're attempting a long-term strategy of coercion to derailing arms shows, which doesn't escalate. That's Hutchins. And no independence movement. There's no chance that Taiwan formally seeks independence. Their evidence says there's pressure from a small minority change, but that's not something new or substantive change. Our evidence cites the president of Taiwan nationalism doesn't have Chinese action. 19. I have failed to find empirical evidence, wisdom, and enemies. I'm not trying to mention the nationalism, which I'm not letting them lose this trade. Change in policy, empirical research on Chinese national focus on measuring national identity, global surveys, and also focus on more perceptions of insecurity, public observation checks. We said the most recent polls, 19 as whatever independence remains a single digit. Most Taiwanese of 50% of governments believe unification will higher than 70% agree that there's no need for declaring independence. Roughly 50% believe that Beijing will attack Taiwan declares independence regardless any moves will be narrow. Said in 19 is unlikely that Taiwan will end up turning towards independence of China's long-run war and retaliation. Mark the card of retaliation. No nationalism impact has been declining since 2009. Series of empirical evidence shows no correlation with foreign policy decisions. That's Johnson 0. Data for supports this. Johnson 17 means about nationalism and RA still growing empirically problematic. The divergent action external and international drivers of Chinese foreign policy. The British based in the resulting unoriginal wisdom is surging nationalism literature checks and figures the empirical testing nationalism declining share. 17 purpose rising nationalism. The Biafra market results suggest that Chinese students are nationalistic and China's terms of words are harsher to foreign policy energy has not been a response to domestic nationalism. Go back to the relations advantage. No impact on the 18 morale. Both must be run and must be impossible to survive acquisition of the most reckless.
You marked which one, Mueller?
Yeah.
Okay. You good?
Yes.
For this card, trade war is the biggest internal link. Where does this card say it? Where is this card comparative or make any sort of prescriptive claim? Just as the trade war, it exists. Where does it say that it outweighs anything else?
Okay, well, first, your one is the evidence. None of it makes comparative claims. It just
it does. It says the arms sales are explicitly linked to proliferation.
Yeah,
It gives empirical
and our
examples.
evidence says that. Okay, wait. Are you making like an argument for For which? For the time?
I'm asking why the trade war is the biggest internal link when this card doesn't make any
the
comparative money.
the key distinction between arms sales and tariffs is that the trade war has.
Where's this card sit? Where's this card making claim about arms sales?
Sure, let's go to it. It's
the
not.
the wine 18 card.
Yeah, we've just isolated an all cause the counterclaim fiat's out of it.
Sure,
Even
but
if you win that, then we have another all cause relations. Like it doesn't matter.
Okay, sure, but you're okay.
It talks about how economic intervention should be the controlling factor in this.
That's not answering my question. Taiwan, you read a bunch of cards like nationalism doesn't define them. Where does any of this evidence speak to the unique stance of China towards Taiwan and its history?
Well, it's just indicting the overall thing. It's in context of Chinese foreign policy, and it's specifically.
So it's not specific.
It is. It's in context of Chinese nationalism. The Johnson evidence.
Well, it's in the context of Chinese nationalism, but it's not in the context of Taiwan. Do you think? Do you think this evidence speaks to Taiwan?
It's in context of the scenario that you're isolating, as well as the 1 and C Johnson evidence is in context of Taiwan. I don't understand what you're trying to get at.
Sure, you're a 1 and C card, asymmetric deterrence fails, a bunch of reasons that Taiwan could never do it. You read a counterplan that's the entire solvency is predicated off of asymmetric
Not the entire
deterrence.
solvency, just that card.
There's just 2 of the 3 solvency claims.
Yeah,
how is that?
extended it. You conceded it doesn't matter. You can't go for your Gomez card that talks.
Sure, but how can you go for this counterplan if you conceded that your solvency?
Because that's just one of the claims. It's not the.
Yeah, one of the you read the 3 cards you read at the top. You said defending the East Coast solves and solves Taiwanese deterrence. Both of these are reliant on A2AD being effective. How do you still access that?
We still access it because it's not all premise.
I guess better question. What's the solvency mechanism after Taiwan not being able to effectively defend themselves with A2AD?
So there's only okay. So
well, what's the solvency? I just want you to tell me what the solvency mechanism is that you still have.
The solvency mechanism?
Yes.
Well, we have the deterrence planks, but
the deterrence planks have been taken out.
Yeah, I understand that. No, that's not true. The deterrence planks. Well, okay, the A2AD stuff is distinct from the deterrence planks.
So the deterrence planks just increase arms sales to Taiwan.
The A2AD card that you conceded is just an internal link takeout to the Gomez evidence that y'all try
and an internal link takeout to the where this is getting kind of circular.
Okay, then you just
that's fine. The multilateral institution, the NPT down argument. Do you say we have to get rid of Chinese, Russian, and U.S. nukes? Why is that true?
Wait, which portion?
You made an argument that the AF solvency burden is getting rid of all China's, all Russia's, and all U.S. nukes. Why is that true?
Well, etc. Y'all have isolated a bunch of other countries that would.
Yes.
If you lose that, even one of those countries get nukes. Example, like revisionist powers like Russia or China have.
But our argument is about new proliferating states being uniquely destabilizing. Why do we have to win that Russia disarms fully after the AF?
Because absent that, they can still distribute these arms or.
Well, you have any evidence on Russia doing this?
It was sent. The order is just USMCA, Taiwan War Bench.
You look very confused. It looks like cold chicken.
I don't even know if this is not got like impossible pockets with like supposed to look like me kind of, but I don't think it's chicken. I think the impossible something.
I don't know.
There is a possible chicken now. Like,
Is there?
Well, I don't know who does that, but like KFC's whole thing right now is they have a possible chicken. So it's like,
Where did you get that?
Blue Juice.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if you just had.
Well, but there's also a tostada in here, and I couldn't get a tostada. So
That's a good sign.
I just don't think this is mine.
Cool. Is everything good? The USMCA decided conceded that there's no impact. There's no office of the further deterrence. That they've dropped Russia, ceding Taiwan to China. Proceeds green lights continue expansion. That takes U.S. deterrence to line growing relations China and Russia to expand their spheres of influence, giving the ability to capitalize on U.S. weakness, lighting the match box for hours, racist proxy wars, cyber, hybrid conflict, and global economic collapse. Comparatively outweighs because the transitions of that's fragile and individual U.S.-Russia war, finally nuclear war, trading station, that's cotton married, and 70 even all the nuclear war to U.S.-Russia after nuclear war. We were sometimes most of the Soviet Union, nuclear war trading stations, still the cost of U.S.-Russia, small regional nuclear war, likely to help lead the humanization, possibly greater turns. Taiwan war increased arms after the key to surge of ameliorate China's actions of reduction in bold and G. That's Wang and Master. Second is in terms of relations. These are the decisive turn link to the turn of the event because relations are impossible in a world where China uses the concession as an invitation for influence. That's a black hole. That's a black hole. It's the first argument of Chinese nationalism was already answered the 2NC. Regardless, it's a link magnifier because it proves that in a world where we cut arms deals and embolden China to enforce those nationalist and pressure G. Second is that they say the commitment sends a bad signal. We'll reverse this with the link debate, which I'll do here. 3, the top level for issues versus the entire advantage, realizing the assumption that retreating back to the status quo would be better for deterrence. If we win our thesis claim that sales are good for certain timing deterrence strategies, then there's only a risk that the plan results in appeasement after returning back to erratic anarchic comic pro status quo. That's black hole. Second is they don't have any evidence that China is actually going to take Taiwan now, which proves that current deterrence strategies are working, but the plan removes the only credible defense against expansionist Chinese ambition. Third is a red line argument sends such a massive signal, which would obviously apply to our links too. The Wang evidence makes very broad link arguments, which I'll read more evidence on here. First is strategy. U.S. protection of Taiwan's key global democracy, curbing China's influence. The absence of strategic equivalent of sinking an aircraft carrier. That's Wang and ETB democracy of authoritarian government. Watch the airways just supporting democracy around the world. Taiwan strategically situated between ECS and SCS. Taiwan controls the Taiwan geography research and constraint of DLA's information. Taiwan treaty as an unstable aircraft career acquisition enhanced China naval capability. Second is symbolism. Trump sailed F-16s are essential to deter China. We're bringing back to the status quo and bold Xi did attack Taiwan. That's moving in 636 did. Trump held arms with China. She offers concessions and military amounts of power. Taiwan streets influence Beijing's direction, making more likely to bring the reduced service. Washington wise to fall on a delivery of arms fishing is moving out close to the island. China did it was a boy of capability needed for potential campaign. PLA prepared to unify Taiwan for Beijing established quantitative advantage over Taiwan. Beijing might certainly could launch successful offense against Taiwan. Offensive against Taiwan possession Beijing lose. The word the U.S. more likely current arms strategies is not essential. Third is hardliners reduce arms sales strength and Chinese hardliners. They're nationalists, which takes out their internal link but crushes economic and political stability. That's Shelley and 11's U.S. security system. Taiwan reinforces direction reasons domestic development must convert U.S. security system make it risky and defensive. If the U.S. were to support, we should expect nationalist pressure CCP to solve Taiwan. The Taiwan problem. Fourth is F-16 is twofold. First, it provides signal American commitment precisely strengthens air base presence in the region. Second, it provides an increased material deterrent by upgrading Taiwan's outdated F-5s, which is the Mazda evidence. The next argument was the Castor evidence, but here's a re-highlighting the first internal link to solving war. Castor gives us a strong deterrence posture that we reread. That's when you see Castor 16 analysts Taiwan's defensive quite strong, particularly if the U.S. committed islands security remains robust. The fourth argument was just the next argument was just shifting the power is unsustainable because of A2AD. First, that's like Gomez in here, but this predates most of the recent sales. Second is they don't assume the broader signaling perception arguments, which I made above. Third is here doesn't make this argument, and a defense of realism. Card, which I'll answer below. The next argument, the O'Connor evidence is just bad. It proves that a renewed posture deterrence is key right now because China's making gains, which is all our arguments. The combination doesn't solve all our revisions of offense, which I'll do below. First, the plan is a veil to hide China's true intentions regarding their ability to cooperate. A combination ensures China takes global power. The next argument is that they're not revisionists, but they are China's revisionists. They adopt a grand strategy of undermining the U.S. alliance structure and reasserting themselves as the hegemon. Their violation of international law, their IP theft, most rights, island building, manipulation of currency, and human rights abuses all prove they prioritize power over security. They aren't willing to come to the table with liberal companies, which liberal compromise, which takes out the affiliation with the U.S. as a tool China expects to maximize their own power, meaning general relations are impossible. And the asking will be limited, superficial, and cut off by G. As soon as it benefits and destroying black hole, official doctors over AI prove that Thayer and Han and 19 video start messing with certain G doctor pill guidance, China's aggression, increasing confidence that China developed technological killers control 5G and artificial intelligence. They still convince that China's ready to resource war. China has to use nuclear war weapons or else another cold harbor. Is G doctor lose territory expansion? Doctor said a perilous precedent of essential territory expansion is further inside China and jeopardize peace in the region. The doctrine ambitions of powerful China is facing the United States from the region. Grand Ministry has made critical moves to counter China's aggression and global in the world. So has begun to consider the negative implications of China rescue. Some surround China's political with greater strength and determination, more vigorous diplomatic and military measures. China proclaim and rationalize this aggression. Trump doctrine enforcement response revealed the folly aggression. Their examples were just things like the WTO and international institutions, but our evidence indicts this logic and says that China will use them for their own advantage. The next Castor evidence about building relations just goes neg. We'll reread this. Which we see Castor 60 reaching use maybe carries risk usage for terminating ourselves, almost during the change about power such effect. Undercut Taiwan's weapon signal U.S. reduce U.S. interest Taiwan security market credit security. The group the next two arguments arms do matter, which is the link to me, which proves the magnitude. The Yoder card talks about economic concessions, not the app, and it still goes neg. Their evidence concedes it has been empirically effective, and the rest of this card is about economic retrenchment, not a defensive retrenchment, which are obviously distinct. The SES is an all cause, and at best this card is inconclusive on whether or not the retrenchment is the correct strategy. Read it after the round. The SES build stuff doesn't matter because the U.S. hasn't recognized China's claims. It's not about Taiwan. The shifting asymmetric strategy also doesn't matter because one, Taiwan doesn't have domestic capacity, which was cost. Second, it solves 0% of the perception links, and third is it doesn't mention specific capabilities, which means the evidence is bad, and you shouldn't let them extrapolate.
Yeah. I'll take big green.
Next thing you tell the big natives.
Oh my god. That's like next level.
Yeah.
How much you get?
Is everybody good for order? Let's do relations, then the counterplan, and then Taiwan. Sure.
Wait, relations, counterclaim, and then
It's Taiwan. Sure.
wait, are there 1 year? Oh,
Yeah. That's the
we can just.
Yeah.
Just
you good, sure?
I'm not ready. Alright, yeah, you can.
Our scenario reports on a blood pressure. They have no evidence that Russia can be new. Sultan Evidence credibility of MPT may be allowed, but China's increased efforts solve sets Russian capability. They're literally funneling tech disengagements because lack of cooperation. They haven't contested orders called Saudi over controlling that China increased cooperation. The Carlson evidence says good with cooperation is key that occurs post-planning because China actively helps United States veto to increase regulations. They say all causes. They don't have evidence about issue linkages. Even if we don't solve overall relations, we solve the issue linkage proliferation. Taiwan outweighs the question of sovereignty. That'll be more on the counterplan. They say debates. China doesn't give a hoot about the United States domestic debates because they've gotten the largest concession in the history of Taiwan. The Mueller evidence group all of them and Beers don't apply to global non-proliferation class because these are insecure states. Yes, proliferation. Their evidence is in the context of superior states. Our evidence is about inferior states because there's no second secure triggering capability. There's incentive to strike first. Counterplan. Sufficiency for me is bad because we such high magnitude over impact charge is bad because takes us enter to 2AR switch skews the 2AR the count 2 tunars. The compound increases the risk of war. First is that independence is tied to US support, which means the compound increases the risk of uniqueness of independence. That's the Tay evidence. The Maza evidence I'll attend here. It's not. They have no evidence about how China perceives Taiwan. The more evidence details the history of China in quotes American and Chinese IR experts. They see as a sacred commitment. The East Coast evidence we explicitly concede the H2AD's fails. I was trying to see cross-ex. It's not a question of cost. China views the issue as existential. The relation stuff issue linkages outweigh those on the case, which means even if they solve relations overall, they don't solve prolif. It's comparatively outweighs because of the sovereignty issue, not an economic issue, which they view as hurting legitimacy. The other planks overwhelm that signal because it actively hurts China's territorial sovereignty. Permutation do both solves because it gives them A2AD or pressures them to get A2AD, which is sufficient. Perms a binary, then because they've said A2AD deters aggression. Taiwan. Yes, war. It's a question of miscalculation from naval blockade. You can see that China, nuclear and conventional forces are intermingled, which means they think we're already starting a war. So it's in their incentive to first strike independence. We've identified strong structural factors that makes miscalculation inevitable in the long term because they're moving away from China. It's not about declaring independence, but rather the signal of it. The nationalism card is not about Taiwan. We don't have to win nationalism overall guides China. It's over in the context of Taiwan. That's some more evidence. Public opposition is limited. Our evidence cites long-term trends. 80% oppose G. The Sun evidence is wrong. They're emboldened because of U.S. support. Yes, nationalism. The more evidence is just way more specific. It's a history of external colonialism that they view as hurting legitimacy. The appeasement debate. At the top, they've dropped the 1AC binary evidence that says the appeasement theory is false. It cites decades of studies that says countries can isolate decisions insofar as they think one decision won't affect credibility on the other commitment. It gives the example of Berlin Wall being disconnected from our engagement in Vietnam during the Cold War. This takes out their appeasement links, but it also takes out their NATO links or the Russian impact because it perceives the regions are distinct. It also is a long-term structural trend because it's about containment strategy, perception overall. Even eliminate exchange cause extinction, about hard score in Wickman 18. Less than 1% of the 14,000 nuclear weapons to explode every into the stratosphere, lower the temperature, destroy ozone layer, cause cancer over the season, adding nuclear exchange to arsenals over 2 hours, could cause and civilization everywhere. First strike from the United States civilization could be destroyed. There's no turns case. This relies on them winning revisionism. It doesn't turn relations because we can still have limited cooperation even if revisionism is true. Broadly, the deterrence fails. It's not just nationalism, but they can see the increase the risk of miscalculation because communication is down, which means it increases the risk of misperception. Our scenario isn't invasion, it's blockade. The link debate, stability, the overall democracy stuff. They have no evidence that China occupies Taiwan. Their evidence says it's key for a naval base, but they have no evidence that China will occupy it and use it as such. The symbolism stuff, this SCS outweighs. They can see that example in the 2AC. They're building islands and we're not doing anything. Also, they can just first strike the F-16s and wipe them out in one hit, which proves they're not key. The hardliners link, we've linked to it. Containment confirms view of Hawks because it shows that U.S. is aggressive, which causes reaction. The Lancaster evidence, I'm not doing that one. The uniqueness debate, they really messed up. They've conceded long-term structural trends make U.S. decline in primacy in Asia unsustainable. We read the Gomez evidence, the Here evidence, and the Fan evidence that says sequestration, budget cuts, our involvement in the Middle East, and development of Chinese H2AD capabilities will make decline in the long term. They say arms sales key. This does not answer it. It's about overall containment strategy and comparatively outweighs because it's about overall geopolitical strategy and is in the context of China's perceptions, which means if there's a structure we need to explain try or die flips at the revisionism debate. They haven't explained how any of these examples display revisionism. They've invited us to academic institutions. That was the Trinity Crosslinks. Our Jalil evidence is that international cooperation has expanded overall and that aggression is not trying to exclude the United States. They want regional hegemony but not global leadership. The G doctrine. Our evidence says that aggression is in reaction to the United States to save face, which is proven by their increased aggression only after we increase freedom of operation navigations in the SES. The Jalil evidence, obviously China's acting in self-interest, so does the United States, but our evidence says they've pursued liberal cooperation, they've doubled their participation in international institutions from 21 to 52, and they've done economic regionalization program, not global hegemony. Their relations stuff, they did not answer this well. The Castro heading says rather, and then concludes our way. It says that relations increase the cost of war because it shows China that there's a cost of being aggressive. I'll read evidence here. China will be restrained by improved relations, driven on 19 China by the face of relation, a reason to avoid predation. Doing so will help United States cooperation and other actions that Chinese security, United States citizens, and less than any other challenges. China so supporting the United States will already offer a balancing strategy that reduces the United States world increase and likelihood of translation through the United States less than China the other great powers. They also did the same thing with the Yoder return. It says however, and then it says high cost of containment. Our argument is that we can give up Taiwan to see China's true intentions, and if they act aggressively, then we can more effectively target them. Here's more evidence. We can intervene later, but if it facilitates the best strategy, Yoder 19 vigorous measures, operating policymakers with different China's long-term intention that hinders a coherent strategy, whether China's binding is providing important, even how China could behave corroborating, make it difficult to learn, relaxing to trade the issue of high imports to China, low imports to the United States would provide a window to China's future intention of the issue China acts regarding Taiwan being more credible signals of its benign intentions. Both of these evidence conclude our way.
What you'll have?
8 point.
It's from left floor.
I got an email.
Oh, well, yeah.
Are you getting some?
Yeah.
Also.
Very more quickly get curious that door.
They should figure it out.
Yeah, I'm like, you can go through that door and the cafeteria's right there, or you can walk through the whole building.
It's really awkward.
Is it not unlocked?
Yeah, it's locked. Oh, no, it's not locked. Thank you.
There's also just like two people on the path over there just sitting on top of each other. Like, it's really weird.
Like high school people?
So I'm not looking because like,
Okay. That's fair.
basically Leffler really dropped the ball.
We're just the police, the behavior people.
Seems like there's a probability.
Yeah, sure.
So you're not gonna want to sit there.
So wait, just give me 1 second.
Generally speaking, true. Also,
Aaron.
There's space pieces.
Okay,
that's on you, not him. Nobody's looking down there before they open the door.
I don't think I'm that sure.
Nobody.
I realized I was like so into that room. I can't.
It's not.
Sam, just because you have more, I don't want to get
That's
there.
not like a. That's like anyone sitting is not at eye level when someone opening the door.
I just think that's awesome. I'm joking. That's actually my fault.
Yeah, so the advantage counter plan the Taiwan more advantage with the offense on top, and then the defense on the bottom, and then the relations advantage. Is everyone good? The counterpoint solves the Athens generation needs for the dissent. They conceded that reaffirms our commitment to Taiwan through increased sales and commitment to defend Taiwan and prevent military. That means that on the dissent, you should remember that we have a counterplan that literally increases deterrence just enough to provide enough uniqueness for the dissent, but not enough to overwhelm the link. Yes, efficiency framing could refer to a 1% risk of net benefit. That weighs a minor unquantifiable solvency deficit, especially when the other advantage is straight trash. Yes, judge kick the counterpoint force. They conceded neck flex bet is good on condo power supply that here this week first last and have infinite prep time. The counterplan causes independence, so it doesn't increase deterrence, doesn't do that. The take evidence is not conclusive, and the counterpoint solves it better. And even if the counterpoint solves the terminal impact, but Moss evidence isn't right, the counterpoint eliminates expiratory dynamics by explicitly codifying limited war, which answers the Aiden says a sacred commitment. But if that's true, then the impact would be inevitable in a world where Taiwan has a sacred commitment, because even the decrease in arms sales doesn't stop them from invading. Only the counterpoint can do that. The A2AD, this stuff doesn't take out the counterpoint. The only counterpoint proportion of the counterpoint is applied is the last 3 planks, but we only put it there to get out the link turn. It doesn't take out the rest because the Naozaka evidence, which I'll explain here. At first, this is a major concession. A subpoint is military aid to Taiwan unacceptably increases the cost of invasion to China. The one he identifies no flashpoint as long as the status quo is acceptable and invasion sufficiently difficult. China will conclude the cost of war outweighs the benefits. 1AC cross-sex. You should remember when Aiden says that it's a question of invasion, which means this would be able to solve. B subpoint is limited war posture. Clearly limits the areas of U.S. forces can travel and precludes aggression against the mainland China. Such a posture committed against the U.S. does not intend to asymmetrically escalate, but alleviate to use or lose it. Pressure. C subpoint is defending East Taiwan. They concede this plank. It makes China victory in Taiwan impossible by running RC guerrilla fighters. A sanctuary on East Coast there. Taiwan fails out there. Assume that China surround and starve the island. That wouldn't risk it if carriers block their path, which leads a direct answer to Aiden's one-year response. That's Naozaka. The permutation links to the deterrence term still includes a reduction of arms sales to Detroit. They can see that you should view it through an offensive defense paradigm. Go for what links less or last worse. Judge kick the counterpoint. The deterrence. Yeah, this is functionally no defense for Russia. The one year ceding Taiwan to China is perceived as a green light to continue expansion. That decks U.S. deterrence allows revision China and Russia to expand their tyranny influence, giving them ability, capitalizing U.S. weakness, like the matchbox for arms race proxy and cyber hybrid conflict and global economic collapse. Only a U.S.-Russia war causes extinction through nuclear winter to a massive arsenal. That's a Canberra. The link, well, the link to make should be framed through 2 uniqueness questions. First, there's no conflict, even post the most recent sale, which proves returns effective in the CESCO. Second, they have no evidence that China is actually going to take Taiwan now, which proves the links. There are a couple links. First, the strategy. Taiwan serves as a key vantage point for the U.S. in terms of democracy promotion, naval basing, and hedging against China. Rise in conducting training operations. Abandoning would be seen as equivalent to seeking an aircraft strategy, a character which is able to signal. That's a distinction between the SCS warrant because it's in context of arms sales. Second is symbolism. The world of arms. Beijing will think they can actually launch a successful attack. That emboldens G. They don't link turn the hardliners. We have access to more links, and they don't link turn. They'll see a concession on Taiwan as a perfect opportunity. They'll pressure CCP to invade and invade Taiwan. The Shelly F-16s, one conceded by the 1 year, which should frame the rest of your development. F-16 to materially upgrade Taiwan's outdated F-5s while providing a stronger perception of U.S. aerial basing, which proves a perception that also internal link turns the stuff as proven by cross-success models of the binary. This wasn't dropped, but our evidence better binary doesn't cite modern Asian geopolitics, which is distinct, which evidence describes doubts. So definitely doesn't answer Russia because China and Russia's interests are intertwined. Regardless, winning revision takes us out. Where deterrence collapses inevitable. It was answered. Perception overwhelms these internal issues because obviously China would know about them. Second, it doesn't seem things like latest arms sale. Third, it's a time period question. Any risk of a link means that it's tried for deterrence revision. If we don't need to win the China's revision to win, just have deterrence a better metric to resolve the impact and avoid an external Russia war, which means even if the 2 year goes for revisionism, it doesn't matter. But regional stability is just an excuse to exert more regional content is proven by their expansion in areas outside of Taiwan, like the SCS. Their conceded violation of international law to IP theft, militarized island building, manipulation of currency, and human rights. Their warrant was international law, but that doesn't matter because they're just trying to do that in order to intervene, in order to expand, which is what the 1AR says. That Aiden extends 0 examples of 1AR, but the 1AR emphasizes OBOR as a broader agenda to control states' AI development to get ahead from the U.S. and official G doctrine, which none of the 1AR response to. Your turn. This is an return back to the link outweighs it. 2 late returns to being now, which this is an return. No reason why the planet actually takes it out. The Taiwan advantage just doesn't really matter because the advantage kind of insulted in the Taiwan war. They're China's user rational and pragmatic invading Taiwan when they're backed by the U.S. They conceded that it wouldn't actually impact it. That's Hutchins evidence. Also, no independence, no chance that Taiwan quickly seeks independence. Their evidence says the pressure of small minority groups, and they said only answer was our evidence is in context, but it's in context of China, and it does take into account these regional corporations. The relations advantage, no proliferation norms. Advantage has no uniqueness. Collapse is inevitable. U.S.-Russia relations, INF withdrawal, no burden for absolvency with Russia, China, U.S. Yes, inevitable. Mishandle the NPT failure argument. Nuclear weapon states are unraveling the NPT, which means the entire NPT is collapsing. Assault and conceded disengagement. The impending collapse of Prolif is coming now due to division of the NPT committee, which deep divides, and the withdrawal of the INF proves that's given. China isn't keeping we win that the entire MPT collapses. Carlson concedes that it goes negative. Evidence that only says that we can reconcile horizontal role plays and multilateral negotiations, obstacles, some arms aren't key. Too many all causes. That means that it can't solve relation, can't solve the dissents, SCS clashes, IAAB, TPP, cybersecurity norms, and arms aren't key because they can see the shell. The evidence we're talking about arms sales are only emboldened that stuff. No prolific impact, and then no risk of dominance. Security favors no drive internal constraints. The type of distinction that he made isn't taken into account. He answered Meller, but not the green evidence, the ones he which takes into account the distinction. They can see the Kronig evidence that talks about the use or lose empirically is false. Any logical to use the ULE as an example, and it answers it.
7.
So it is explaining the difference between right now.
It's going to be relations advantage, counterplan, Taiwan war advantage. Well, I'll sign those. It's kind of got messy.
Can you say this one more time?
Relations, counterplan, Taiwan war. We're winning a structural thesis claim about the balance of power in East Asia that makes deterrence unstable and war inevitable, which means try or die have to accommodate China because it's only a way out to prevent a war. That means any risk of the external proliferation impact should outweigh the line by line D. 2 hours way too bloody here to answer any of the one air wars. The MPD argument, China is key. They could drop that keep the on negotiation because they can spoil those. They have significant power in the UN, and they drop the supply nuclear tactic proliferators only. The burden is not Russia, or all states. It's about horizontal proliferation, saying that we need to prevent more states from proliferating. China can share. China can shore that up. They can turn an example to others to cooperate, and they can prevent the black market nuclear tech from being transferred. That's the MP7, which is much more specific to any of their warrantless. And that's the INET argument isn't key ones about horizontal proliferation, which is only about the MPD. The all causes don't account for explicit issue linkages. China explicitly links Taiwan arms to non-cooperation proliferation, which none of their evidence speaks to. Taiwan's the big issue. Only we have comparative evidence to other issues. The nuclear impact was way too new. Was way too. Yes, there's prolif. First, this doesn't assume that multiple countries are proliferating at once, which increases the risk miscalculation. Second, the use of lucid defense is not. It's about when states are unequal, and that doesn't assume that multiple states like Saudi Arabia and Iran will be proliferating at once, which incentivizes first strike launches that draw on mission powers, goes nuclear, which outweighs the dissent. Which outweighs the dissent. They counterplan. They spotted that doesn't solve the relations advantage. They can see that Taiwan's key because only reducing arms levels Taiwan and China's cooperation non-proliferation. Increasing arms Taiwan would thus decrease the incentive to cooperate. The HIM card says containment and non-proliferation are incompatible, which means the counterplan can't solve. We are winning a thesis about how China views Taiwan, which means it can't solve any of the aft versus the more P7 says that this is a sacred commitment, which means that the cost can never be high enough to prevent them from blockading Taiwan because they see it as a critical regime's legitimacy and as a historical slight to their power. That means that they can never raise the cost enough. All their answers about the cost of war, which they can see that could never happen to. I'm not going for the independence argument, but they said the war's inevitable. That's not true because we would accommodate China as a caster, which says there's no incentive to go to war if they can see they can get Taiwan peacefully, and there's no U.S. draw in the event that we would reduce arms sales. Taiwan war. Two in our flat drops the relations terms, so I don't need to do much here. The Castro event says that the increasing relations increases the cost of war to China because they have an incentive to cooperate with the U.S. and not invade Taiwan because that would destroy a relation that they had worked hard and that's valuable to them. They can see the one era Shrinivist evidence says that China would need the U.S. for protection against rival powers in the region like Russia, Japan, and India, which means that they would have no incentive to attack Taiwan when they know it would upend. They would have a calculated incentive to stay with the U.S. and not to attack Taiwan because it would undermine their interests. Even if they were revisionism, that outweighs it because it's a continuing example of why it outweighs revisionism. They also drop that there's no appeasement link. The binary evidence says that the countries do not base their actions off of other country actions. That backs it up with decades of research. It says that there's no issue spillover, which answers the Russia stuff because there's no reason Russia would see China appeasement as enhancing U.S. lack of reliability to NATO, which means there's no scenario for that, and there's no escalation there. It also has empirics about Russia, which says the Soviet Union did not see the U.S. Failure to protect Vietnam as a failure to protect Berlin. I'll do all the defense here. First, there's yes war. They can see in Moscow. Taiwan says that Chinese nuclear convention forces are inimical, which means that any time of war would do it. They also can see they can't raise the cost high enough, which means blockade, not invasion is inevitable. Aiden said blockade, not invasion. Second, the perception of independence is what matters. Even if they don't declare independence, China will see long-term trends in the strait not going their way, which incentivizes them to attack because they see the window of opportunity closing and they see U.S. buying the red lines there. The link to it, there's no deterrence link. First, they can see that China can't be deterred, and that was on the counterplan. That was on the counterplan, and they can see that deterrence leads to short-term war, which means even if revisionism is true, that miscommunication and miscalculation, lack of communication status quo makes war inevitable. The symbol link, binary evidence, which says there's no spillover. That answers it. The hardliners link, there's no need for this. They can see that the hardliners are emboldened now because the U.S. is Canadian. There's only a risk of the app would solve that. The revisionism bit. China is a defensive power. All the examples they give first do not prove that China's innately aggressive because they're really bloody here just about IP stuff. And second, all these examples are reaction to U.S. Containment through things like phone ops and South China Sea and selling arms to their biggest issue. The multilateral cooperation stuff is really mishandled. They're increasing cooperation with the WTO, the CPEC, and regional institutions globally, which there's no evidence to substantiate that this is just a lie to gain power. It's more likely that we should analyze their empirical examples and say that is an indication that China is not revisionist. There's the IP examples of the economy, not a revisionist, imperial agenda. The HR example, everyone violates human rights, even the U.S. They're not saying they're revisionist. The unionist debate, they mishandled it. The structural trends like U.S. budget austerity and oversection in the Middle East and Chinese development of A2AD means deterrence is unstable, and inevitably China will see the U.S. as unable to deter them, unable to knock them out of the East Asian conflict, which means that the perception is inevitable, and China will never, and with the perception inevitable, and China will be emboldened as the U.S. declines in the region. That's their only answer is the counterplan solves, but increasing arms does not offset the structural decline, and U.S. military spending in power, which outweighs anything they can do to Taiwan because it's structural trends.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I can get that.
But it still could be like 45 minutes.
Dr. Inevitable.
It's not good.
It's fine if you'd rather stay here. Oh, fine. Yeah.
I thought he was asking what all about. There's a magical summon button that I actually oh, I know. I'm a big fan.
It's your smashing that button. Well, the fleet is at there.
So the first debate, everyone's in the room. I was like, I want to see how this works. You're going to get attacked. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's awesome.
That's y'all's, right? Your paper? Just
It came from there.
Yeah, you're right.
You alright?
Congrats, everyone. The decision is 3-0 for the app.
I'll start. So I'm all for this as a negative strategy. The problem is, conceptually for me, I think that the revisionism question is super, super important. And it is something that falls to the wayside by the 2NR. Like, there's even a moment where you say, like, even if we lose the revisionism debate, we can still win because, and that's not necessarily true in my mind, because I think it undergirds literally all of your arguments. Admittedly, I think the app doesn't, like, hammer you down in the 2AR with why they're winning the revisionism debate, but the comparative analysis and some of the evidence quality, I think, benefits the app when the debate becomes this light on this important of a question, at least to me. The reason I conclude app is I think a lot of the 2AR that covers this particular question kind of captures some of your explanation that's in the 2NR and reframes it in a way that makes me think they're fundamentally right. Like a lot of the offensive realist arguments you have that undergird the reasons why China might be Islamicizing, it might be revisionist, they paint as just it's a reaction to U.S. actions and accommodating them to resolve that. And some of your arguments about why them engaging in Western institutions and potentially operating their own institutions as a way to cement power, I think they recapture as. That's not necessarily true. They're not trying to upend the liberal international order. They're just trying to maintain a regional hegemony, which is completely understandable for a rising power, not necessarily destabilizing. So I think like they're ahead of you on this particular question, which to me matters a lot, because if you win it, I think it makes it very difficult for them to win a relations advantage, which is like a big reason, part of the reason why I vote affirmative, because that's not something the counterplane can access, and I think that's got a pretty big impact to it, and it also really bolsters the direction of the link debate on the Taiwan war question. So when I get to the counterplan, or deal, I look at this first and say it doesn't really resolve relations, which I think matters for a couple of reasons. Number one, not just the relations advantage, but also the 2AR's execution on the question, or execution on the point of the relations link on the Taiwan war argument, that relations acts as a backstop to a future U.S.-China confrontation over this because it raises the cost of war, which is not something you necessarily answer. So that's a twofold reason why the counterplan A doesn't solve relations, and B, even if you like can increase deterrence in the short term, it doesn't deal with long-term structural problems that make the solvency of the counterplan problematic. And this is, I think, like the bottom of the 2AR, but really important, which is just like there are some structural problems to why the U.S. can't contain China in East Asia due to questions of austerity, as well as China's rising powers and anti-access area denial capabilities, make it impossible, even in a world of the counterplan, to lock in a containment strategy to prevent them from fulfilling what they want to fulfill. So that's an issue. Like the counterplan at best solves the forestalls a Taiwan confrontation in the short term, doesn't deal with it in the long term, and does not solve the proliferation component of the relations advantage. The defense you extend here is really just all cause arguments. Unfortunately, I don't really have you extending any of like the good quality terminal defense to proliferation, and I think their evidence from the 1AC is actually pretty good, and it subsumes a lot of your alt cause questions. Like that very first card on this component of the argument from the 1AC like lists a lot of the same reasons as to why the non-proliferation regime is struggling and failing, and it goes further to say that like getting China to act on the side of the United States rather than a spoiler can really slow down the process of horizontal proliferation. And there are some compelling warrants here that they even explicitly extend that make me feel comfortable in a world of U.S.-China cooperation stopping some of the most dangerous elements of proliferation, even if it can't stop them all, because their evidence explains that China would be a key exporter of this technology, both in terms of the nuclear material and expertise, and also the manner in which it could potentially be used, like ballistic missiles. So I think they have a pretty powerful internal link, even if there are some other alt causes, like they solved some pretty significant ones that massively lower the probability of destabilizing proliferation from happening. I think that's like a really big deal. probably a tiebreaker for me. So when I get to the Taiwan question, first I look at the kind of external Russia war impact. I think that their 1AC appeasement defense is probably better than your 1NC expansionism link. Like, the 1NC evidence just kind of asserts that history's on the side of appeasement, enabling powers like Russia and China to probe countries like the United States over time and then act aggressively. But I think that 1AC evidence provides pretty strong empirical evidence, and it quotes decades of research, names the researchers, credits where the research is coming from, and even quotes the actions of Russia back when it was the Soviet Union, like disconnecting Vietnam from Berlin, and making me feel pretty comfortable that Taiwan is probably not the thing Russia's going to look at before it goes nuts in Eastern Europe. So I just don't think there's a strong scenario for a strong scenario for the Russian war component here. So then it's just really do you win a straight turn to Taiwan war impact? And I don't really think so, because you lose the revisionism debate in my mind, and I think that in the long term, due to the structural factors that are presented here, a confrontation over Taiwan would be inevitable. You might be right about some of the conditions in the short term, but I just don't think that's relevant, because I think that eventually there would be a flare-up over this. And even if there is not, or even if it would be very far in the future, I just don't think that your links are necessarily true in a world of China being a defensive realist. And I kind of just hang my hat on the relations impact first and foremost.
Yeah, I largely agree. To me, the kind of three most important questions in this debate were counterplan doesn't solve the relations advantage. So then I look at the relations advantage, and I think, I largely agree. I think that this 1AC evidence is quite good. I think this distinction between broader kind of global governance non-prolif regimes and the very more narrow case of China's just exporting nuclear technology, and that's bad, and that's causing particularly dangerous forms of prolif is bad. And then combine that with, I think there's two arguments in the Taiwan advantage that weren't responded to that just make Enigma really, really difficult. The first is this relations turn as kind of a backstop to Taiwan, which to me almost independently means that they can just independently solve the U.S.-China war. And then the second is the 1AC card. That just means that there's no spillover to Russia, which means the only question is this U.S., Taiwan, China kind of war stuff. And I think that the relations link turn to that kind of means that there's no real risk of appeasement to that. And then the rest is the tiebreaker there.
I think some of the big factor for me is some of these sort of structural uniqueness issues that have sort of already been mentioned. I think that vis-a-vis 2A or 2NR, you don't extend counterplan remedies this relations argument. I think they're pretty good on this relations argument, so they have a high risk of relations advantage, and then it comes down to a question of, in my mind, either A, you have to win a near 100% risk of the disad in order to outweigh the advantage, and or sort of a combination of does it access the advantage. I think that the revisionism discussion that sort of already went on is not resolved sort of on your side. I think there's sort of two reasons for this. One is evidentiary based. I think the other is the CX exchange on this just wasn't very good for me, quite frankly. It certainly, I think, made its way into the speeches, and I think their sort of characterization in CX was consistent with how the 2AR characterization was. But I just don't think there's ever any pushback on that characterization. I think it's problematic whenever you're trying to resolve the debate of, well, I had this exchange that occurred at a slower moment, and there wasn't even any pushback later on when it wasn't sort of they could say something back immediately. And so I think that it frames the way in which judges are going to read that evidence from the side of, well, their evidence needs to say this is offensive / they didn't invite, which I think puts it at a much higher threshold than you probably want for most debates. The second thing that I think is sort of problematic is this sort of uniqueness question of U.S. in the region long term. I think either A, there needs to be some pushback to this, or B, there's got to be planks in the counterplan that counterplan out of this uniqueness arc. I think if you start doing that, that you're going to run into perm issues, and I think that would have I would have extended the perm here.
In the 2AR?
Yes, in the 2AR. I don't think it would have taken very long. I think it'd be like, look, this stuff for sure solves the link to their DA. Yeah, you can judge kick it, but then they really have uniqueness issues, as opposed to just potentially having uniqueness issues. And I don't think it would have been a huge investment of time. I think it would have been a mistake to invest a bunch of time on like the judge kick versus no judge kick debate. So don't go overboard. But I would struggle to articulate a large link differential or a link differential that's meaningful between the permutation and sticking with the status quo.
So in order to perm, it would be like do the plan and then announce that will come to Taiwan's aid.
Yeah,
So then if
the U.S. will basically defend Taiwan and treat Taiwan like it's its own thing and so on and so forth. So the perm you made was fine. I just think it seems like all the stuff that they say would establish a strong enough deterrent. There's not a reason as to why that would not remedy the link claim, and it seems like that can be couched very nicely with some of your other arguments of we're still in the region. This doesn't pull out U.S. troops. We just stop arms sales, but long term there's still issues. So I think that might be a way to go about that. But I think that from your side, there's got to be pushback on some of these, on that particular overarching uniqueness claim. This Russia argument, I think there's sort of two problems. One, I don't think your quality here is super high, and I think that it's very difficult to articulate why Russia would feel free to expand when NATO is not going anywhere, nor is there like even like a NATO weak card or something like that read. And I think that they have this 1AC card on appeasement is not a thing that never was really considered at any point by the negative. So I think that comparatively lower risk of VA, very high risk of advantage, makes it super hard to vote neg.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we always have trouble with 2AR, like how big the debates get in the 2AR.
Yeah.
What did y'all do? You think 2AR is an allocation?
Well, so I was actually going to mention something to them. I think these like large debates with like tons of cards, like will structural advantage the app. Just for you have the 2AR, you have the 1AC card, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to go for. And so like I think like it's to your benefit when you have these kinds of debates or anything else. I don't know what.
I think you should structure some of the 2AR with some of these overarching questions at the top of the 2AR, as opposed to doing them in the line by line. Because I think that takes a lot of pressure off of the 2AR. It's going to be like, look, even if I drop link number 5 or whatever the hell, we have these big overarching issues that they have not responded to that handle all of these claims.
So you think I was thinking about this in prep, and we decided the relation terms were important. Do you think I should have put like that uniqueness, deterrence, collapse, and inevitable stuff at the top of the DA? Okay.
Yeah.
I would have.
Okay.
Like,
it seems like there's consensus.
I could not agree more with that general framing. Like for me, two things that came late in the 2AR but were really important. One is the structural uniqueness question, which was mentioned by multiple judges. And for me in particular, just with the way that I think about a lot of these expansionism, disad, case turn debates on some of these affirmatives on this topic, whether it be Iran with Saudi Arabia or China with Taiwan, the revisionism question to me is incredibly important because it buttresses either the AF's answer set, if you win that they're a defensive realist, or the neg's offensive set, if they're an offensive realist. And I think that in your case, especially when the 2NR really spends only a minimal amount of time here, if you can frame the 2AR around if our thesis claim that China is only reacting to aggressive U.S. actions and its actions in the Asia-Pacific are consistent with defensive realism, they don't win any of their turns, so there's no offense. Like, I think that's an important trick for affirmatives to just always win. And like, you already know this because the 1AC is built around it.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure the 2AR is too.
Okay. Thank you.
So like that makes sense in structure. Was there like stuff we could have cut out, or do you think the time allocation itself is?
To me, I think it's like a. I have a philosophy as a debater and as a judge that like the first 30 seconds of the 2NR or the 2AR, you opt to hear spoken back to you by a judge. Like, and that's where and this is just, it's like psychology, it's like the priming effect, but also it's just like that's your moment to really catch the judge's attention before everything else you say causes them to lose focus, and then what your opponents are going to say. So for me, it's like if you have a really important framing question that literally filters every single argument, in this instance, these uniqueness questions, those should be forefronted at the top of the 2AR. Like, we will win the revisionism debate, which means it's impossible for them to win offense. If China's a defensive realist, that means they don't have a turn on Taiwan, and that's their only source of offense. We'll win the appeasement defense to the Russia argument. There is no disad to the AF. relations is the tiebreaker because the counterclaim doesn't solve that, even if you think we're a little bit behind on that question. And then it's like, I'm going to say that back to you when I vote half. Like, I basically did. So that's my... You're saying these things, tie them together in the places that give the judge or that tap into the psychology of how judges formulate their decisions.
This is kind of minute, but I structurally used to think that should have been like top of the speech or top of that flow.
Like the deterrence question, I think you could either couple with, so I'm speaking purely from my perspective on the revisionism stuff, because this might matter differently to other judges. I could see the revisionism thing being that like 30-second framing, and you can either then move on to the deterrence question there, or I think what's also totally acceptable is just like at the top of the Taiwan advantage, when you're just like, we're going to want a structural uniqueness question about deterrence being possible. At best, they can shore up deterrence in the short term. It's impossible in the long term. They undercovered the reasons that austerity and A2AD make it impossible. So they can't sustain deterrence forever. Because that's just like, that's the uniqueness of the dissat on the case, I guess. So it's fine there too. It's just prioritization of the things we're already saying.
If it all comes down to revisionism anyways, like I feel like why not just spend 2 minutes there, or how can we better insulate our audience from revisionism?
Also, like for me, like I mean, like these debates work around the revisionism question, so I can totally understand there being a lot of time allocation there. Because if you are right that China is not an aggressor, they're not going to react aggressively in the case of Taiwan concession. So like the more time you spend there, the more it undercuts their arguments, and making the particularities of the line by line a little less necessary in my eyes. If you're just if these arguments do have those enjoined theses between them.
Okay, and do you think it makes sense? Like what we try to do sometimes is like the proto stuff is external, because like even if they're revisionists, they can still trade issues. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Cold War analogies there would be great too.
Yeah. And
organization-wise, you might have done this out on a different sheet of paper. Like, I think there are some worlds in which it does benefit to put it on the case, but I don't know if that was the case here, no pun intended. And I think it maybe made things more difficult for you, oddly, than for them in this debate.
Okay.
Others might disagree, I don't know.
I think I agree. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on the like where to put it. You know, if you put it on the advantage of putting it on a case is like theoretically teams undercover that. But you know, I think that's probably not going to happen here. And so I think in that instance, just putting it on a separate piece of paper makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And do you think whether 1A or red cards was fine? I never know. Like, do you think structure like reading cards?
What was the point of this nuclear, like limited nuclear war extinction card?
Because I was kind of afraid, just like a ballot, it's like extinction outweighs like the spark ballot, where it's like.
Was this like their only U.S.-Russia war causes extinction answer? I mean, for me, that I strategically understand why you read it, but it was always going to be a big point for me, kind of, because there were so many other questions that before I would ever get to that being the thing I voted on, there was going to be like so many other things that I thought you were already making the winning arguments on. So it's like that to me felt irrelevant.
I don't think certainly they could have in the 2.5, but I don't think really the groundwork was set, nor is it really the debate where they're going to be like, we win 1% risk of this. It's a bigger impact because it's Russia, U.S. versus other countries engaging in nuclear war that draws in the U.S. potentially. So I don't know if it's different enough, maybe, and I don't necessarily know if they're really just going to be like 1% risk. We outweigh really, really big other conflict.
Would you have swapped that with like a uniqueness card or like another appeasement false card?
That's a good question.
I don't think appeasement falls. Sorry.
I
I don't think appeasement falls.
We came with our answers in the same second.
Okay. Well, so I think that like this wasn't answered, and so I think like so like reading more cards just gives them like more opportunity to like answer it now. So I would not. Was that your?
I was gonna say I might read another uniqueness card, quite frankly.
Okay.
Just like some sort of other structural issue that's going to cause U.S. decline in military strength in Asia.
Separate from that, because like I agree with all that. To me, like if you're wanting to make a strategic argument or to at least get some interplay to deal with the like only U.S.-Russia war causes extinction, like this is so. I almost give equivalence to like the strategic utility of reading that card versus just saying that a global nuclear exchange between the U.S. and China probably draws in Russia. Like I think they achieve the same thing. Like, and you can just say that, and I think most judges will be like, oh yeah. Like I'm just spitballing here, but like to me, if you're still wanting to deal with that, you can just probably say like, and the Taiwan war turns because draws in Russia. Like, I know this card hasn't been read forever, and I'm not saying you should read it, but remember, I know you all remember, like, what was the Straight Times card? Like there was
shooting war.
Yeah, there was like the Straight Times card, which not saying you should
2000.
read,
That's
not
all
saying
I
you should
remember.
read, but if you want to like look at it to know how to just rhetorically articulate it, like the Straight Times in 2000 evidence like has a scenario where it's like, and Russia will just start wrecking stuff if the U.S. and China go to war over Taiwan. It's like this is an intuitive and logical argument that it previously was a huge impact card in debate that like you could just borrow that from and assert it analytically, and everybody will be like, I agree. That's just what happens in a world where nuclear weapons get used. Everything goes.
You can also do the thing where like it's like when the 2AC makes the argument and the 1AR reads the card.
Yeah.
Like, the 1AR can make the argument, and then if they do that thing, the 2AR can read the card. Like, they have to they make new answers to it, and then you get to say it in the 2AR thing.
And I also think in a lot of debates, they'd be very hard pressed to create a differential between a conflict you could win access to, because the reason the warrant there is just a bunch of nuclear weapons. And it seems like you could say, well, we access that same warrant. It's not like U.S.-China nuclear war is a whole lot better than U.S.-Russia nuclear war.
And if their Russia expansionism thesis is true, the U.S. getting bogged down in a conflict in East Asia probably ignites Russia expansionism.
That's true.
That one, that's probably the most true of everything we've said so far.
Thank you. Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, you debate.